Hello and welcome to the screencast for ELL360 Historical Pragmatics. My name is Graham Williams and many of you will know me as lecturer of the history of English here in the School of English. And most pertinently to this module, my research interests generally to do with medieval and early modern Englishes, but specifically I've also worked on early English familiar letters. I have a book which was published in 2013 on women's epistolary utterance, so looking at the language of letters of two women writing at the end of the 16th century. So many of the areas of my research overlap with discussions we have on this module. So what we study on ELL360, primarily we read and analyze actual English letters written roughly from the middle of the 15th century to the middle of the 17th century between brothers, wives and husbands, lovers, and other types of addressers and addressees, and discuss and describe the forms and functions of their communication using theory and method derived primarily from historical pragmatics, also stylistics. So we look at things such as speech act theory, politeness and impoliteness theory, looking at specifics of address terms, right? And if you're not familiar with this terminology, they are introduced in the course of the module as well, so you'll get a good handle of them as we go along, week by week. And because we're interested in language use in context, it's also important that we consider the background or the socio-cultural context of late medieval and early modern England, right? Which informs the ways in which people view their relationships, the beliefs they have, and the way in which this is going to affect the language that goes into these communicative texts. So for assessment, 8 weekly quizzes, right, which are short, multiple choice, available on Mole, right, should be fairly straightforward if you've done your reading for the week. These are worth 10% of your overall grade. Then about halfway through the module, there's a textual analysis, which will involve you looking at an actual letter and applying some of the terms and concepts in an analysis of what's going on in that letter. And then at the end of the module, there's a longer essay, which is usually a comparative exercise looking at letters from an earlier period with letters from a later period, or letters or emails from the present day, as a way of discussing the way in which the pragmatics and the language of communication changes over time. Teaching format, pretty straightforward. So you have one lecture on theory and methods in historical pragmatics and some of the historical background that's pertinent for that week. And then in seminar, we look at actual letters, usually looking at 1 or 2 letters each week and really getting into the details of what the letters are made up of and what's going on in those letters. Some other info to say: there's no prerequisites for this module, and we welcome students and perspectives from all across the School of English and as well as in other programs. Weekly readings come from the textbook, which is very affordable, English Historical Pragmatics softcover book, which will be available in Blackwell's or on Amazon. Learning outcomes: generally broad knowledge of the theories and methods used in historical pragmatics. Secondly, an understanding of pragmatic changes in the history of English over time, right? So for example, the way in which politeness culture changes over time and how this is reflected in things like letters. And finally, one of the outcomes is an ability to apply these terms and concepts to real-life examples, right? Whether that be in the past or in the present day, as a comparative exercise to look at change. So I hope that that's been useful. If you do have any questions, feel free to drop me a line. I look forward to either seeing you on the module or hearing from you soon. Okay, bye.